There's a man standing in front of a mirror right now, and he doesn't know it, but he's looking at the only person who can ruin his life. Not his boss, not his parents, not the economy, not bad luck. Him. And somewhere at this exact moment, another person is standing in front of a different mirror, looking at the only person who can save him. Same face, same kind of mirror, same starting conditions. The difference between them isn't talent. It isn't money. It isn't even circumstance, though circumstance loves to take the blame. The difference is what they decided to think every single day when nobody was watching. Stay with me because what I'm about to tell you will feel uncomfortable before it feels like freedom. There was a man who used to sell insurance door to door. He wasn't impressive. He wasn't lucky. He failed more than he succeeded. And one evening, broke and tired, he sat across from an older man who looked at him and said something that didn't sound like advice at the time. It sounded like an insult. He said, "It's not the economy. The economy's been bad before. It's you." The young man wanted to argue. He had every reason to. He'd worked hard. He'd shown up. He'd done what he was told, but the older man wasn't finished. "You let your thinking get small," he said. "You started thinking like someone who expects to lose, and the universe is very accommodating. It will hand you exactly what you expect." That young man's name was Jim Rohn, and that conversation didn't just change his career. It changed the architecture of his mind. But here's what most people miss when they hear that story. They think the lesson is think positive and good things happen. That's the gift shop version. That's the version printed on a coffee mug, stripped of everything that made it true. The real lesson is heavier than that. Your thinking isn't separate from your life. Your thinking is your life just before it becomes visible. Every room you haven't walked into. Every conversation you've avoided. Every version of yourself you quietly buried because you decided, somewhere in some unremarkable Tuesday, that it wasn't worth trying anymore. That began as a thought. A small one, barely noticeable. The kind of thought that doesn't announce itself as a decision, but is one. And this is where everything changes. Because if your thinking built the life you're standing in right now, then your thinking can build a different one. Not someday, not when conditions improve. Starting with the next thought you choose to keep and the next one you choose to throw away. Most people don't manage their thinking. They let it manage them. They wake up and let the news, the comparison, the scroll, the doubt of a stranger online, decide what they'll believe about their own potential before they've even brushed their teeth. Rohn used to say discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. Most people read that and nod and move on. They don't let it land, so let it land. Think about a person you knew years ago who had something, a spark, a talent, a way of lighting up a room or solving a problem nobody else could touch. And somewhere along the way, that spark went quiet. Not because life crushed them in one dramatic blow. It was smaller than that. It was 1,000 evenings of "I'll start tomorrow." 1,000 mornings of "today doesn't count." 1,000 small surrenders that felt harmless in the moment and catastrophic in total. That is the real tragedy of a wasted life. It rarely announces itself. It erodes you so gently you mistake the erosion for peace. What happens next is even more important. Because somewhere right now you might be doing the same thing to yourself. Not through some massive failure. Through comfort, through the soft, seductive logic of later. And later has a way of becoming never. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine you could meet yourself 5 years from today, not as a fantasy, but as an actual conversation. What would that version of you want to ask the version sitting here right now? Would they thank you for the discipline you built? Or would they look at you with something between grief and disbelief, wondering why you kept choosing the easy thought instead of the true one? That future self is not fixed yet. They are being written, sentence by sentence, decision by decision, by you today. This is the part Rohn understood that most self-help never touches. Positive thinking isn't about painting your problems a brighter color. It's not pretending the storm isn't coming. It's about refusing to let your mind become the weakest part of you when the storm arrives, because it will arrive for everyone without exception. The undisciplined mind meets hardship and says, "See, I knew it. I knew I couldn't." And it collects that failure like evidence in a trial against its own future. The disciplined mind meets the exact same hardship and says, "This is the tuition. This is what growth costs." Same event, two completely different lives branching out from it. You are not responsible for every circumstance that lands on you, but you are entirely responsible for what you decide it means. And that meaning becomes the blueprint for everything you build next. The real truth is not what you expect. It's not that successful people had better thoughts by accident. It's that they treated their thinking like a garden, not a wilderness. They pulled the weeds daily. The comparison, the bitterness, the excuses dressed up as reasons. They didn't let those things grow just because they showed up uninvited. And the people whose lives quietly disappoint them, the ones who reach 40 or 50 or 60 and feel that strange, hollow ache of, where did it go? They didn't fail through some single catastrophic choice. They failed through neglect. They let the weeds grow because pulling them felt like too much effort on any one particular day. And 1,000 particular days later, the garden was gone. So here is the question underneath everything I've said tonight. What have you been letting grow in your mind without permission? What thought have you repeated so many times that you've mistaken it for truth, when really it's just a habit wearing the costume of fact? You are allowed to change your mind about your own life. Today, not after the perfect circumstance arrives. Not after you feel ready, because readiness is a feeling, and feelings are notoriously unreliable narrators. Discipline isn't the punishment for a life gone wrong. Discipline is the respect you show the life you still have left. And time, the one resource no one can sell you more of, is already spending itself while you decide what to do with this very moment. So decide, not loudly, not for an audience. Decide quietly, the way real change always starts, in the 5 seconds after you close this video when no one is watching, and the only person grading you is the one in the mirror. That man, Jim Rohn, wasn't built in a single triumphant moment. He was built in thousands of unremarkable mornings where he chose the harder, truer thought over the easy, comfortable lie. You have that same mirror waiting for you tomorrow morning. The only question that matters is which version of yourself you intend to keep feeding. Because whichever one you feed, starting today, is the one that will eventually answer the door when life comes looking for you.